What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you tuning in. I am on vacation right now. I'm out in Colorado. We're going to talk a little basketball hoops. So it's only right. And I give a quick shout out to Colorado State, a team that I used to cover. And man, they turned in the game of the tournament so far. Not a lot of competition for that title, considering kind of how quiet this tournament has been. But still, what a insane finish there with them and Maryland. Derek Queen hitting the runner game winner off the window. I don't think it was a travel. I don't know why that has become a thing, but want to talk a little hoops. Starting with obviously in the college NCAA tournament right now. And the first thing I want to start off with, I think NIL maybe killed the NCAA tournament. And it's something I've been thinking about as I was watching games all weekend long. There's no good Cinderella teams. There hasn't been. Last year, NC State as an 11 seed goes on a run, but it's not like that's a no-name team or program. But when's like the last time we had like a really quiet team that no one had really kind of heard of that went on a deep run? That's probably the Peacocks, actually, come to think of it. But since NIL has started, now maybe it's too small of a sample size, but if you look at the teams that we got left right now, we still have all 4 1 seeds. We still have 3 of the 4 2 seeds. If you want to call Arkansas a Cinderella team right now, I mean, that was a team that was in the top 10 at one point. They have an incredible amount of talent that came with Coach Cal over from Kentucky. I mean, they have more talent on that roster than probably the top 5 in the country. They just play an incredibly frustrating brand of basketball if you're a fan of the Razorbacks. Hall of Fame coach. Like, are we really going to sit here and say that Coach Cal is a Cinderella coach or a Cinderella team? Like, it's not a Cinderella in my book. And last year, I mean, we got to the Sweet 16. We had all 4 1s. We had all 4 2s in that. Again, we had the 11 seed NC State, but like there wasn't really like a crazy. I mean, they went to the Final Four, but I'm talking about when we used to have George Mason go on runs. We had Lehigh knocking off Duke. We had just some crazy years of watching teams. UMBC knocking off Virginia, a 16-1 seed. Purdue losing as a 1 seed first round. We were having a moment of this bliss that was awesome. And I guess there's 2 sides of this coin. One, everyone loves the good Cinderella run and this team that is just incredible to watch. And not having that makes this tournament, when it's all chalk, it's a little bit boring. You like to see some of the chaos. That's part of what makes this tournament incredible. The other half of that is it's going to set up for some incredible matchups. Honestly, not so much here in the Sweet 16, but if we get another round of chalk, you're going to start having just must-see TV and matchups with teams with a chance to go to the Final Four after that. But let's talk a little about the kind of games that we saw over the weekend, I guess, that some of the ones that stood out. Once again, not very many good ones. It was not only was it chalk, it was pretty boring also. I mean, there was a lot of blowouts. There's a lot of games that were pretty well in hand that didn't come down to the wire up until the Rams have their hearts just ripped out of their chests on that Derek Queen like fadeaway, just incredible play, incredible shot on his part by a freshman to fade that way, to pull to bank it off the glass on a runner like that. That was a difficult shot. And right after Colorado State swings it and hits a 3 to go up. I mean, that game was incredible. But other than that, like the Florida UConn game was shaping up to be an awesome one. And then the last 4 minutes of that game, UConn just fell apart. Like that did not look like a team that had won back-to-back national titles. I mean, they were missing rebounds on free throws. As much as people want to sit there and start blaming the refs, that's not on the refs. They were giving up wide open shots to good shooters. That's not on the refs. they had them. I mean, they really had a shot at knocking off Florida, and that would have been one of the first, like, okay, now we're getting what we paid for. I mean, Florida is probably the second most picked team to win the title behind Duke. And that really could have shooken up this entire tournament and really busted a lot of brackets. But instead, they kind of falter down the stretch. Didn't love that. The Arizona-Oregon game was really fun. Watching Caleb Love kind of morph back into his UNC days of the tournament where he just becomes an absolute menace and just is taking over games. And that sets up for what's going to be the best matchup in the second round, as far as my money's worth, as far as what I'm going to be looking forward to. The Duke-Arizona game could be really fun for a number of reasons. The headliner is obviously going to be Caleb Love going up against Duke again, and he has had their number. I mean, he's got 3 wins in Cameron Indoor, 2 when he was at UNC, 1 with the Wildcats, and he just plays well against. He just likes these bright lights, and something about that matchup, something about this team, he seems to play his best. And if he can do it one more time, I mean, it'll be legendary. It'll be a pretty incredible performance, especially going up against this Duke team, which is just an absolute powerhouse across the board. Watching the fives go at it is going to be one of the things that I'm really, really going to be interested in. Malawak is a 5-star freshman 7'2" center for Duke, and he's incredibly raw, and he does things throughout a game that just will drive a Duke fan crazy. Will have opportunities for rebounds and just kind of is a little clumsy or awkward, and he'll miss those, or kind of some guys kind of get into his chest when they're bigger and they're able to kind of score around him. And it's just like you feel like you got all this height that he's kind of just wasting. And then he'll help side block things off the backboard and almost break it, and he'll catch lobs and dunk on people, and he changes so many things at the rim because he's an athletic big that is a shot blocker, on top of the fact that across the board Duke is just massive. I mean, they run 6'6" at point, 6'6" at shooting guard, 6'7" at small forward, 6'9" Cooper Flagg at power forward, and then 7'2" at center, and they bring in more height off the bench as well. So, I mean, they are massive. But seeing that going up against Arizona's bigs is going to be really, really, really fun because Toby Owaka is a stud. And kind of watching him match up and what he was able to do against a 7-footer this past round against Oregon, he held his own, got in a little foul trouble late, but he puts up a double-double against a very skilled big man. And he's going to have to bring his lunch pail because that is going to be a tall task to get through those trees that Duke's going to throw at him. And they got a few. But that's the one I'm circling. Some of the other ones don't really kind of jump out at me as matchups that I'm really that crazy about. I think Houston's going to roll Purdue. The Kentucky-Tennessee is an interesting one. SEC, by the way. Shout out to the SEC. There was a lot to do about this being the best conference maybe ever, and then it was like, did they get too much respect? Getting Oklahoma in, who was horrible in conference play and this, that, and the other. But I think they got 7 teams in the Sweet 16. It's pretty good. It's pretty insane. It says a lot about the depth of that conference, which also then goes back to helps when you cherry pick all the best players in mid-majors, and if you got the bankroll to keep adding them. Part of the reason why we don't see all of those kind of mid-major Cinderella stories right now. But the Kentucky-Tennessee matchup, Kentucky is, Otega Owe is awesome. He's having an incredible year for them, transfer from Oklahoma. Brandon Garrison has given them a nice little lift defensively at the center. He's a lob threat, transfer from Oklahoma State. And they're getting some good guard play right now. But I do like Tennessee in that matchup, but I think that's going to be a little bit of a rock fight. Like that one's coming down to the wire a little bit right there. The Ole Miss Michigan State game fascinates me because this Michigan State team is wild. The fact that They won the Big 12, or the Big 10, sorry. And they didn't have one player on the all-conference list on the first team. I think they said it had never happened before, or hadn't happened in like 50 years, something like that. But they just rotate in so many guys, and they play so many people, and they run out so many bodies at you. They don't have anyone that averages over 30 minutes a game. And they got Coach Izzo, who's, boy, I mean, he's a top 3 coach in college basketball right now. They don't have the star power. They don't have that one guy that normally you think kind of takes over and can help carry you to the finish line or get you wins in March. But they got a lot of things to love. They're built like an old school, actually they're really kind of built like an old school mid-major conference that just has a bunch of guys that play really well together, and they know their system, and they play hard and don't make mistakes. Can it be enough to beat a red-hot Ole Miss team? We'll see, but Ole Miss is tough. I've seen them play in person. Their guard plays really, really good. So that'll be fun. This Michigan State team fascinates me. I'm curious to see how far they can go and push this, and if they can make this potentially be, it's a copycat sort of league. Well, more teams look at it and say, maybe necessarily you don't want to have the full-on 5-star, but if we get a bunch of guys that buy into where we're just going to run out bodies and just play hard in the minutes that you get, maybe that'll start something. Florida, Maryland. I think this is where the Terps, their season comes to an end here pretty quick. As good as Derek Queen is, the centers for Florida are awesome, and they have 3 of them that they can just rotate out there and just throw bodies at you. And they're shooting the ball incredibly well right now. And it got a little hairy for them in the last matchup, like I said. But I don't think this is a good matchup at all for Maryland. So I think that run comes to an end there. BYU, Bama. Bama's been a little odd in this tournament run. But I really like Grant Nelson. And I just feel like I've seen BYU a couple times. I don't know. It's a little bit of equipment, but I just still feel like Bama gets that one kind of comfortably. And then maybe the second best game on the slate, Arkansas, Texas Tech to me. Again, Arkansas is they put your mind in a blender in the fact that, again, they have a top 5 talented roster in college basketball. It is loaded with talent. 5 stars. They got a Hall of Fame coach. It just never seemed to click throughout the entire season, and they just always left you being like, all right, if this team ever figured it out, they'd be super dangerous, and they just never did. Never seemed to want to play well with each other or kind of get into their system or play hard. But they still have that talent, and that talent keeps winning games because they can just win individual matchups and kind of make things happen. Brazil's awesome. Wagner's awesome. Can it be enough to beat a really, really good defensive Texas Tech team, a team that has a lot of speed? Maybe. I'm starting to think so. The more I watch them, the more that they kind of have this kind of success and this bit of a run, the more I start to believe them. They looked incredible against St. John's. I mean, they kind of took it to them. And then when they would make those kind of bonehead mistakes that seemed like opened up the door, they would just make one of their incredibly talented plays that made up for it. They still drive you crazy, but I think the Razorbacks, I think they could pull off this upset, and that might be the only upset on the board that I look at, and I feel like that's the one to kind of keep your eye on. So a little bit of a quiet NCAA tournament start, but when you keep all the best teams and no one gets upset, eventually they're going to run into each other. And so hopefully what was a slow start to the tournament is going to give us a really good finish. So let's hope these Sweet 16s, week 2 of the tournament gives us a little bit better, more competitive game. So